WBC.
Wayne Lamley has saved himself on a couple occasions this season, pulling down the ball when he expected a block to come short. Shinsky came across his face. He pulled it down, went outside, and got off an excellent kick to save field position.
Kevin Mason trying to kickstart the Saskatchewan offense. First down from his own 35. There's Robert Mims, and he's met by Obi Spanik as he crossed the line of scrimmage, and that Ottawa front is looking tough this afternoon.
I've been impressed with Ottawa's defensive front their past 2 football games. They really shut down Montreal 2 weeks ago when they had a huge crowd back at a home game, and they've come out with that same inspiration and fire. And this is what you expect from a football team all year, not to get a moratorium to play well, but to come out week after week and do it.
Well, Kevin Mason trying to avoid a 4th consecutive 2-and-out situation with 3:20 to play in the first quarter. Here comes that big rush again. Mason elusive over the line and taken out at the 41-yard line. That's Cummins again. And Kevin Mason and the Saskatchewan offense has to go off again.
You know, it really doesn't make any difference how well your young quarterback can read and throw. If he doesn't get the time to pull away from the center, you know, he's not going to stand a chance. And once again, Ottawa took a page out of Toronto's playbook last week with the blitz. And you're going to get younger right here. And Knight, they're going to come clean, and he's going to be running for his life. And he can't do that if you expect for him to have a successful game today. Jailbreak once again by Ottawa's defense.
Matic to punt. Looks like you're trying to draw Ottawa offside, but the Roughriders remain poised at the line. Robert Gordon tries to spin away and finally down at the 42. Well, it's an Ottawa lead, 2-0 with 2:43 left of wind advantage for the Eastern Riders in this first quarter.
Well, Brett Matic has been the best weapon for the Saskatchewan Roughriders here in the first quarter as we get a look at John Payne showing some concern about the lack of productivity of his offense.
Yeah, these two teams showing why they are second last and last in the Canadian Football League in scoring so far. Archer, that little hitch. Gordon brings it back inside, and not much there as Bryant Robinson moved out to nail Robert Gordon.
You know, if that play hits, it will hit big, the hit screen. But it's the most difficult pass to throw in the CFL because you have such great pursuit by the players. This league is built on speed and getting to the football, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders, especially LeBrent Robertson, does a great job of closing to the football.
It's a gain of 1, and the flag goes down. We've got procedure against Ottawa.
Center field.
Ottawa really needs to be concerned right now with their offense. They are not getting anything. They have no continuity moving right now, so they're going to be in a big struggle when they have to face the wind.
Procedure. Ottawa number 53. Still second down.
Big Uzo Okeke, the left tackle
I like
move.
that. You got it out.
I took the shortcut, though. Azuma Okeke.
Well, he's not hard to miss. He's a big man, about 310 pounds, playing that left offensive tackle.
You know what impressed me was that the players voted him to their All-Canadian team a year ago. Second and long, Archer pulls it down and finds a wide open receiver. That's Willie Hinchcliffe, the speedster. And Hinchcliffe has just his 3rd catch of the season, and that's the biggest play for Ottawa in this first quarter. 42 yards from Archer to 82, Willie Hinchcliffe.
Well, sometimes as defensive secondary players go, you'll gamble, and they got a little mixed up in the coverage. Willie Hinchcliffe blew right past the coverage on the inside. Donaldson checked him. The safety didn't come across. Big play, Ottawa.
So first down out of the shotgun, David Archer, and the receiver fell, and Aaron Ruffin looked like he had an easy pick, and it bounced off the shoulder pad.
Well, I think the wind was a big advantage for Ottawa on that play. Maybe you should take those sunglasses off and play the game and stop trying to look cool. He'd have had an interception.
Right off the numbers.
Ottawa, 2nd and 10.
So it's 2nd down, a hurry-up offense employed by Archer as he tries to use as much time with the wind as possible. Flag down as they go to the end zone to Rogers. Incomplete.
I think we're going to get an offsides here. But Ottawa, when Hinchcliffe caught the big pass, seemed like they had something on a roll.
Well, they'll get another play.
They're going to get another play, but you know, Archer has to learn how to gauge the wind. This is something that's not a...
Offside. Saskatchewan, number 93. Repeat, 2nd down.
Tim Edwards offside.
Gauging the wind is not an easy thing to do, and he's had several opportunities here in the first quarter where he's just flat out overthrown receivers. Archer last season led the CFL in the efficiency rating. This year he's about 30 points off his pace.
2nd and 5. And Archer in trouble. Down he goes. Another flag has been thrown in the backfield.
First one in was the heaviest.
It looks like we have another offsides against Saskatchewan, and that will give Ottawa an automatic 1st down.
Offside. Saskatchewan, number 41. 1st down.
Gary Rogers. In his 2nd game for Saskatchewan after being reacquired, Montreal let him go when Alfred Payton returned to the CFL.
Well, you know, the good teams don't make those constant small errors, and that's what causes you to lose close games, mental mistakes.
Big reprieve for Ottawa. Let's see what Archer does with it. Looking near the goal line for Gordon. Incomplete. Coverage provided by the veteran Vincent Donaldson, 6th year out of Michigan State.
And once again, Archer not appreciating the wind that he has at his back, putting too much on the football, and it's taking off and it's making it a difficult reception for his receivers to make. You'll see once again, he just sits in, he's just gunning it over the middle, and you can see how the ball takes off with that wind at his back. He has to be able to bring it down, come over the top just a bit more.
Barring a penalty, the final play of the first quarter with the win for Archer. And he looks for Ellingson, and James Ellingson can't hang on. Aaron Ruffin was all over him to make the defensive play.
That was an excellent play by Ruffin to reach around Ellingson and to avoid the interference, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders keeps the Ottawa Roughriders out of the end zone once again.
Hello? Hello? Are you in there?
Oh, ever wonder how some mechanics can quote you a package price on brakes without even seeing your car? Well, at Midas, the technicians aren't psychic. They always do a free written inspection first. And the price they quote is the price you pay. It's guaranteed. Just like the word. Midas, the way it should be. I see millions of people driving to Midas.
My brother wanted to be a cowboy, but me?
Andrew Salvaccio, McDonald's executive chef, food enthusiast, and the man who actually created the Arch Deluxe.
Quality ingredients are just the start of a great burger. Crisp leaves of iceberg lettuce, the stone ground mustard sauce, the soft comforting potato roll. I'm in the zone. All layered together in one symphony of taste. I made it for you. I love being a chef.
McDonald's Arch Deluxe, the country's favorite new burger.
And not just because of the hat.
The most for business from Sprint Canada guarantees better savings for your business on toll-free 800 and 888 service. Think the local phone company's making the same guarantee? Think again. The most for business from Sprint Canada means lower costs on toll-free service, call detail reporting, and savings guaranteed better than the local phone company. Thinking toll-free savings? Think the most for business from Sprint Canada. Call 1-888-400-SAVE for details.
James, my first visit back since last year's Grey Cup, and as was the case in the Grey Cup game last year at Taylor Field, the wind is an enormous factor here today, and it's going to be on this field goal attempt by Wayne Lamley of 26 yards as Ottawa now will move against the wind in the second quarter.
Well, we've seen how it's been a hindrance for David Archer with the wind at his back, and especially for a kicker kicking into the wind. You like to keep the ball low, and that's the trajectory going over the line of scrimmage, so it's going to be very important for him to be able to get it up over without it getting blocked here.
The distance shouldn't be a factor. It's whether or not he can get it over that oncoming line, and he puts it up. And apparently missed it. So Lamley misses. They've had 2 field goals without even getting a kick away, and now the miss makes it 3-0.
Well, you have to look at the first quarter stats in the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Even though they lost in time of possession and yardage, they actually won that quarter because they only allowed 2 points with all the mistakes that they made. Now Ottawa has the win in their face, and Saskatchewan vice versa with it at their back.
John Payne, a head coach here in the mid-70s, knows all about windy days at Taylor Field. A nice chat with Jim Daly yesterday, an Ottawa native, coached the GGs, the Sooners, was with the Eastern Riders, grew up on Sunnyside Avenue, a mile away from what was Lansdowne Park, a big Ottawa Rough Rider fan, but trying to find a way to beat the Eastern Riders this afternoon. Here's another big pressure situation on Kevin Mason as Stacey Evans came clean, and what's happening down that line for the Saskatchewan offense?
I think that's a major concern. I spoke about it a few moments ago. They've had to make some adjustments, but they just, over the 2 weeks, have not been able to protect Kevin Mason. And it doesn't make any difference how much promise he has as a young quarterback. He won't get a chance to develop on his back.
Joe Moss likes what he has seen so far out of his defense. And it's 2nd and 10 Saskatchewan. Here they come again. Mason trying to get outside, and he is dropped again behind the line of scrimmage. Lubo Zizakovic.
I tell you, this Saskatchewan offensive line looks like holding gauze up in front of a semi right now. There's no way of stopping anybody, and I think they're going to have to come to the sideline and regroup, because you look here and it's just a jailbreak. Lubo Zizakovic really didn't even have to put a move on John James. It just kept in his pursuit angle, hustled, and brought down the young quarterback for another sack here in early in the second quarter.
5 times 2 and out now. Lubo seeing his first action this afternoon and chalks up a sack. And Matic will get to unload with the win for the first time. And he blasts a beauty. Wilhite fielding it back at his 12. And pretty good downfield coverage for Saskatchewan, considering the length of the punt, 63 yards and an 8-yard return.
You know, when you look at the problems that Saskatchewan's having with their offensive line, Pooch Hendrickson is normally the center, and he makes all the offensive line call adjustments at the line of scrimmage. And with him out of there, Paul Vida is doing that today, something he's unaccustomed in doing, and they've had a lot of problems. Mikowski's playing the guard position that Vida normally played, but they need to make some adjustments on the sideline.
Look at a former great Ottawa defensive lineman, Greg Marshall, now the coach of the defensive line for Saskatchewan, that comes up with a big play.
He's become a very solid defensive coordinator here in the CFL, and this is just his first year in that position, but his defense has played well here in the first part of the game, so he has to be very pleased with their productivity.
Got to buy some time for that offense to get untracked.
Well, they've gone away from a lot of the things that they've done. Last week, Robert Mims was held to only 12 yards rushing, and this week he hasn't even gotten untracked.
2nd and 10. Sean Daniels, and he is hit as soon as Archer gave him the football. Tim Edwards was there, Jurison in the neighborhood, and we have all the makings of a very low-scoring game this afternoon.
A very low-scoring game, and that's the way both of these teams came in, the 2 lowest point production teams in the league, and we've seen defense once again rear its head, and it's a great thing to see, because defenses will win you championships, offenses will bring fans into the stadium, but we've seen 2 outstanding defensive performances thus far in this game.
Spoken like a former defensive lineman.
I'm a spectator.
Oh, Wayne Lamley gets set to kick into that stiff breeze. Here comes the rush from Donaldson, almost got there. Pretty good kick by Lamley, and Rod Harris at his 49. Harris across midfield, dropped at the Ottawa 53 by Tommy Henry. 39-yard punt into the breeze.
Mazda 626. Available V6 and 164 horses loaded with luxury features. Room and comfort with style and soul. 626, the family sedan with surprisingly sporty performance. 626.
Earth-shaking news for everyone who owns a car from Canada's tire store, Canadian Tire. Now, for a limited time, take advantage of special buys on quality North American-made MotoMaster tires. Like all 13-inch MotoMaster AW Plus tires for just $45 each. 14-inch are $55 each, and 15-inch are only $65 each install. But hurry, offer ends September 21st. Everyday low prices, that's good. Great sale prices on tires, that's better. Canadian Tire, everyday low prices made better.
Oh, my. Yes, you're raising one for the penitentiary there. Oh, you're bad.
Oh, you're bad. You're bad. Oh, you're bad.
You're nuts. Yeah.
Nuts is an understatement.
This hour's 22 Minutes returns September 30th on CBC.
Back at Taylor Field, here's Ottawa President Jim Durrell. Jim, I know you could have used 2 weeks in Club Med after the last 3 weeks of business in Ottawa, but as it is, you're delighted you and your team had a chance just to make this trip.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here, but I'll tell you, it's only the first step in many, Scott, for a franchise. We've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, that's the reality of the situation. This was all well and good, but what must you do now to ensure that the Roughriders don't have to go through this whole ordeal again next year?
We got to win today, get a full house for Hamilton, and have our fans stick with us the rest of the season. It's critical.
You have to find an equity investor as well?
We'll get one, but they have to see our fans. Get them!
Jim Durrell breaking into a play-by-play account of the game. But Jim, I want to thank you for your time and congratulations on all you did in Ottawa in the past 3 weeks.
Thanks, Scott, and thank Ottawa fans. They're the real winners in this one.
All right, Chris, what did you think of Jim Durrell's attempt at play-by-play?
You can have the headset. Congratulations to Jim and all the folks. I know Jim Daly, the guy on the other side for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, said there was nobody better qualified to save the Ottawa Roughriders than Jim Durrell. Well, Saskatchewan still looking for its first down of the game. Mason on second down going up top. Jump ball, and Tommy Henry with great coverage on Curtis Mayfield.
Well, you know, as a cornerback, that's what you want to do, is push the receiver to the sideline.
Well, next Saturday, what a terrific matchup. The Calgary Stampeders and the Toronto Argonauts. Doug Flutie against his former team, and a little extra intrigue in that these two teams both coming off rare losses in the same week.
Well, you know, we're going to get a great opportunity next week to look at the teacher and the student.
And next Sunday, Hamilton and Ottawa. And you heard Jim Durrell and the game plan he's got to win today and win next week. And the Ottawa Roughriders would be knocking on the playoff door. Here's a 55-yard field goal attempt by Frank Jagus, which misses to the right side. And Kenny Wilhite's bringing it out. And Wilhite turns the corner, but a flag goes down as Wilhite down the sidelines up to the 45-yard line. But a flag went down well back.
Well, we're going to get an illegal block that's going to cost Ottawa great field position.
And a real debate going on at the Ottawa bench. Lamar McGriggs. And based on the argument at the Ottawa bench, McGriggs the culprit.
Ottawa number 56. Down.
Jermaine Younger. You know, and those are the type of mistakes that have cost Ottawa this season, when you have an opportunity to get the good field position and you get the illegal block. And generally that comes from a player not hustling fully. If you get to the spot that's designated on the coverage team, you'll be in position to make your block.
We talked about giving up single points and the risk of running them out. Sometimes you can see an alley like Wilhite saw there, but Jim Daly was saying you have to factor in the possibility of a penalty that'll back you up, and that's what's happened to the Roughriders here. They might have been better off conceding the single point. Here's Profale Greer And not much there against a stingy Saskatchewan defense. That'll bring up 2nd and long as Greg Marshall looks on. He had a little conference there with Greg Battle and Dan Rashovich a few minutes ago, and there's a lot of experience in that Saskatchewan defense.
It really is. You look at Battle and Rashovich, and there's 23 years combined experience between those two players, and you bring the young Tommy Smith in, a tremendous athlete to complement the two, and they have a very solid linebacking core.
2nd down and 7. Archer from his end zone guns the pass and has a completion and a 1st down. David Archer going to Joseph Rogers for the catch.
And Chris, this is what I was talking about when David Archer throws in between the numbers. He is very effective as a quarterback. He gets himself in trouble when he tries to extend the field outside the numbers, but Rogers runs a nice curl route, and he got the cushion, the separation from Ruffin, and he was there for the nice strike from Archer.
Maybe some evidence there too. Often quarterbacks will tell you it's easier to throw into the wind, where Archer can really let fire and not worry about it sailing. Profile Greer again, and they're not able to establish anything on the run against LeBryant, Robinson, and company.
You spoke about Dan Rashovich and Greg Battle. They had their heads right in the middle of that mix also, but LeBryant Robinson has some extra incentive. Whenever you can play against the former team, it seems to always bring out the best in you. He's been moved inside to defensive tackle over the past couple of games. He's had to make some adjustments with the angles, but he's starting to play better at that position.
2nd down 8. Archer stands in, delivers, was looking for Robert Gordon, but tight coverage by Terrell Ulmer. And it'll be 3rd down. Just a reminder for viewers in Atlantic Canada tonight, you will see last night's game between Team Canada and Team USA, the World Cup of Hockey final, beginning at 7 o'clock local time. And that is for viewers in Atlantic Canada that unfortunately missed the game last night as Hurricane Hortense blew through.
You were glued to the tube, weren't you?
I don't think I'd want to see it again.
Oh, okay.
Rod Harris. And Harris ducked under a tackle, and he may go for a run. Here's Rod Harris, and he's headed for the end zone. No flags. Touchdown, Saskatchewan. 57 yards for Rod Harris, and Saskatchewan's on the board.
And Chris, that is the first touchdown that Rod Harris has scored since October of 1994. He has to be very happy, but this crowd at Taylor Field is jubilant because the Riders have finally been able to punch it in for a major.
Well, the offense has been unable to get on track, so Harris does it on specialty teams. It was a 37-yard punt, but Harris rumbles 57 yards for the touchdown.
Now, there's been some mishandlings on long snaps trying to get the placement with the wind at their face. Let's see if they can get it down.
Jagus does put it through, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders have the lead. 8:03 to go. First half.
Think of
At the start of the year, Jim Daly wasn't using Rod Harris on punt returns, had to because of injuries, and he's won the job.
Well, he hasn't been able to get him off of it, and when you can get a player who's excited about playing specialty teams, that's what you want.
Here's Kenny Wilhite, outstanding return man for Ottawa, forced out of bounds. And there is Harris, a favorite receiver of David Archer a year ago.
Well, 2 years ago in Sacramento. Last year he was in Shreveport, but he's been a welcome addition to the Saskatchewan Roughriders. As you see, once he hit the open seam there was no catching him, and he was off to the races, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders are on the scoreboard finally.
So the Saskatchewan Roughriders have the lead without recording a first down so far in the opening half. Greer will try the left side with flags flying, and Profile Greer is up to the 35. Dan Rashovich, the veteran linebacker, with the tackle.
They're going to get Gary Rogers being offsides again. That's the second time he's done that. And once again, one of those costly mistakes that I keep talking about, teams that are having problems create for themselves. Last week, he gambled a couple of times in Toronto, allowing Doug Flutie to escape into the end zone, but you can't do that. I read the lips. Jake sold me out, but I read his lips. He did say 4-1.
Saskatchewan is number 41.
So Rogers gives Ottawa a first and 5 situation.
First down and 5.
Fourth penalty, 30 yards charged against Saskatchewan so far.
David Archer needs to take advantage of this.
Here comes the blitz from Battle, but they dump it off over the middle.
Archer's
and Joseph
pass
Rogers,
is off, and it's good.
That's not much beyond the line of scrimmage, maybe a pickup of a yard.
It's not much beyond the line of scrimmage, but it's a positive play because you're picking up yardage. He was able to avoid the blitz and get the ball off. The next time Saskatchewan has to be worried about that he can avoid the blitz and get the ball off, so they may not be so willing to come like that next time.
As David Archer told us yesterday, the idea will be to bite them when they come after us. That time they just took a little bit of a nip out of the Saskatchewan defense. 2nd and 3. Here on the counter, and he's tripped up at the 37.
Airborne there for a second.
And he'll be short.
The Saskatchewan has already proven that they're very stingy against the ground game. They had some success running Sean Daniels straight ahead early in the first quarter. Now they're trying to run this counter trade where you pull both backside offensive linemen. And when you do that, if a defensive lineman recognizes that they're going away, you get in that hip pocket and follow, and they've been making the plays on it.
Well, that ground game that John Payne wanted to establish here today has fizzled so far. And Wayne Lamley comes in to punt with 6:20 remaining in a defensive struggle here at Taylor Field. Ottawa using as much of that clock as possible. Here's Harris. And this time, better coverage by the Roughriders. So the Ottawa offense gets set to come back on the field with the lead here at Taylor Field.
Maybe the 11th is any location.
It's time to... We've heard so much about concussions with professional athletes over the past years, and we had a look at James Ellingson sitting on the sidelines. He took a tenacious hit in that opening series of the game, and we've seen him wincing on the sidelines, and he may be suffering the effects of a slight concussion.
Definitely in some discomfort at the Ottawa bench as Saskatchewan goes to work with Kevin Mason. Little dump pass, and that's a completion to Robert Mims, who's down to the 52-yard line. A gain of 3, which means Mason and company are -1 total yards offense on the day.
Well, they can't be pleased with Kevin Mason's production, but it's not his fault. Every time he's dropped back